Now I imagine that there are moments that most of us experience where we wonder why something bad is happening to us. It may be an accident that occurs, or a holiday that gets postponed. It may be that something gets stolen, or that you suffer the death of someone close to you. The emotion of whatever it is causes you to kind of look up to the sky and ask, why do bad things happen to me? Last week we began our devotions looking at the parable of the friend at midnight. And what we took away from Jesus' words was hopefully the motivation to pray, and to pray often. Well, this week we turn to the parable of the barren fig tree and the teaching of Jesus, who, having motivated his disciples to pray, now motivates all people to repent. Luke 13 verse 1. Now there were some present at that time who told Jesus about the Galileans whose blood Pilate had mixed with their sacrifices. Jesus answered, "Do you think that these Galileans were worse sinners than all the other Galileans because they suffered this way? I tell you, no. But unless you repent, you too will all perish. Or those 18 who died when the tower in Siloam fell on them, do you think that they were more guilty than all the others living in Jerusalem? I tell you, no. But unless you repent, you too will all perish." Now, I'm not sure with our modern minds that we think that people who die in a disaster or who die in tragic circumstances are necessarily more sinful than anyone else. I imagine that we feel sad for them and for their families. Perhaps we may even feel anger if their death could have been avoided. But for the most part, I think we see death as a normal part of life. And so we kind of almost quickly move on to the next disaster or the next tragic circumstance. Where the words of Jesus hit home for people today, I think, is in the brevity of life and the uncertainty of not knowing when we will die. We all imagine that we'll live to an old age and die peacefully in our sleep. But disasters or tragic circumstances are a sober reminder that the hope of a long life is not something that everyone experiences. And so the call of Jesus to repent is just as imperative today as it was when he first spoke those words. The call on our family and friends who don't know Jesus to repent is just as imperative today as it was yesterday, because none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. And what we wrestle with, I think, is the busyness of life, and so simply finding time to speak to someone about Jesus, as well as the timing, of course, of when it's appropriate to speak to someone about Jesus. And yet, the words of Jesus that are a precursor to the parable itself that we'll look at on Wednesday, they are an honest approach, I think, to the problem of waiting too long to speak the words of the gospel. If a person who does not know Jesus does not repent before they die, and repenting in this context is putting their faith in Jesus, then they will perish. Just like the Galileans and just like the 18 who died in the Tower of Siloam. They too will die. However, if they don't have faith in Jesus, they will also perish into hell. See, it's not about whether they are more sinful than anyone else. We are all sinful. Whether we believe in Jesus or we don't believe in Jesus, we all sin and deserve to face the judgment of God, and so hell. The difference for the believer is that our trust is in Jesus, who took the judgment of God that we deserve on himself. And at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is putting your faith in Jesus. And that's what Jesus is urging his hearers to do. And so, friends, why don't you take a couple of minutes to pray that God will give the gift of faith to people you know who don't know Jesus.